Computer. Okay, so I have started the recording. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is what we were discussing in our previous session, right? And we completed actually one part. So that part was like we had an application, hello world kind of application that we developed in Anypoint Studio, and then we created a jar file of our code, and we took that jar file and used the control plane, which is our Anypoint platform and Mule Anypoint platform, and we used this plane and deployed our code to the Cloud Hub. I mean, when I'm saying the Cloud Hub, it means we deployed our code in a runtime engine which is managed by the MuleSoft and which is on the cloud. So we looked into this part, right? Now we are going to look into the second part, right? Which is another way of running your application, right? So in this part, what we are going to do is we are going to have our runtime engine, means the Mule runtime engine, running in our own premises. Okay, our own premises means it may be your data centers, in some machine in your data center, maybe in your laptop, maybe something like that, something a hardware that you manage, right? Or your company, or maybe it is managed by the Amazon, but it will be your own hardware, or it will be in your own control, right? So we're going to look into this. Okay, so first thing what we have to do is we need the Mule runtime engine. Okay, so in the previous session I discussed that how you can download the Mule runtime engine. Just it's nothing, go to the Google and get a free copy, right? Search in the Google like download the Mule runtime engine, and then you can get the free copy, right? It will be a zip file, and let me show how it will be. Mhm. 1 second, let me see. Are you able to see my screen, right, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, okay. There it is. Here it is. Right, let me. Okay, so you will download a zip file, something like this, right? So it's a 4.3.0, and then this is your 4.2.2, right? So in a previous session, I believe I downloaded this zip file from the internet. So this is my free copy of Mule runtime engine that I can use for about 1 month or something like that, right? I do not exactly remember. Then I unzipped it. This is my Mule runtime engine. Okay, that's it. So you just unzip it. That is your Mule runtime engine. You don't need to install anything. You don't need to configure anything or something like that. It's just available, right? So to now we need to learn how to start Mule runtime engine, how to connect this Mule runtime engine to the control plane and things like that, right? So to do that, or to start, let's first see how to start the Mule runtime engine, right? To start the Mule runtime engine, you need to go to bin directory. Okay, so go to the bin directory and open your command prompt. All right, and then here you need to run a command called Mule, right? So you run this command with no argument or switch. It will start your Mule runtime engine, okay, on your computer. Okay, so now our Mule runtime engine is starting. So, and this Mule runtime engine is really lightweight, so it does not take a lot of time to start, and it does not need any other configuration, right? So this is your runtime engine. Okay, so we started the runtime engine in my personal laptop, as you can see. Okay, so I will uh, stop it. Okay. Right, to stop it, I just I press the Control C. Okay, to start the Mule runtime engine. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now the second thing is what we want to do today. We want to use our control planes. Control plane means, just to be very specific, I want my any point platform. Okay, so control plane means, when I'm saying the control plane, this guy. Okay, so I want this guy or the control plane to connect this Mule runtime engine. Okay, I want this engine to be managed by this control plane. Okay, why I want to do it? Because I will be using my control plane to deploy application on this Mule runtime engine, right? Later, at some point, right, when my flows will start processing the file, I will use this user interface control plane to monitor the files, monitor the execution of files, see how many requests are coming, which one is failed, if there is any error, then what is the error, and all the other activities, support activities, right? I will be using this. So that to happen, this guy control plane has to connect or know about my Mule runtime engine, which is running on my laptop. Okay, so the next step we are going to do is we are going to do something so that these two components connect and start communicating with each other. Okay, so I do not remember if I discussed this part or not. So your Mule runtime engine has an agent, I mean small some program which is running inside your engine, which has ability to connect to your control plane. Okay, when I'm saying it has ability to connect, it means so say suppose in your control plane there is a web service, right? So the agent which is uh, right agent which is inside your Mule runtime, right, it know that URL, a web service URL, right? It know the host name and the port number and the service that it need to call, right? So this agent, once we connect these two, right, this agent starts and it starts sending all the information to your control plane. Okay, so this is how it works. So what we are going to do is we're going to establish that connection. So see how we achieve that. Okay, so to do that, what you need to do is go to your runtime manager. Okay, and then click on servers. Okay, after that you click on add server. Okay, you clicked on the add server. This will give you a pop-up. And first field says, first define a unique name for your server. So let's say I say the tech dev environment or something like this. All right. Next, it says copy this command. Okay, and you copy this command, and okay, you just enter the name here and click on the copy command. Then go to your bin directory of your Mule runtime engine. Okay, okay, and then you run that command. Okay, so the command that I copied, it has this dot and slash. So I hope you know that dot slash we use to run command in the Unix or Linux boxes, in that Unix or Linux operating system. But Windows, we don't need to use dot and slash. So just remove that. Okay, and then simply run this command. Enter. What it says, please run this. Okay, let me see what it says. This Mule server is already configured. Okay. In which folder I went for that thing? No, it's not.
It looked like so already established from our local AnyPoint studio to that control plan connection.
No, I mean, I haven't done that. So is it, we did in the last session? No, I think. Let's remove this. Setting, delete, delete. Okay. And it also want me to remove this file. Actually, this file should not be there because I remember this is new conf folder, and which file it is, it want me to remove. Mule agent dot yml. Mule agent, where is Mule agent?
So we are
Mule
seeing
agent.
only your command prompt screen.
You still see my command prompt. I'm in conf folder.
No, we're just seeing the, at least I'm seeing this command.exe interface. Okay.
Okay, so maybe screen is freezed. Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
Okay. So Mule, I will remove this as it is asking me to do that. Okay, so let's run that command again. Okay, so here we are starting our Mule agent, right? So this agent is responsible to communicate with the control plane, right? It will send all the information, all the statistics, logs, and all other details from this Mule runtime engine, right? From this Mule runtime engine to your control plane. Okay, so if you come over here, now let's see tech dev environment. So it says created, right? We just now created, so status is created, right? We haven't started it, is not running, so it is just created status, in the created status. Okay, next. Okay, so now my control plane know that in my laptop, there is a Mule runtime engine installed. Okay. Now I'm going to start my Mule runtime engine. So I'm running the same command again. So let's see what happens. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Now you can see status is running. All right. So what we achieved, we connected our Mule runtime engine with the control plane in the and in what we call it, Mule Anypoint, right? Mule Anypoint platform, right? Which is our control plane. So we have connected these two components. Now these are communicating. Okay. Now I can manage this runtime engine, right, from the control plane. Let me show you how. So if you go here, right, so you can see the details like heap size, CPU utilization, and all those details here, right? And then if you come here, right, you can restart, shut down, renew certificate, delete. You can do whatever you want to do, right? So if we say, suppose I do the shutdown. Okay, so my application is shut down now. Okay, if we cannot start from here, right? Plugins, do we have? So here is the the more detail about your environment, right? If you have any properties, custom property if you want to set, you can set here. If there is any alert or something like that, so we can look into those things here. Right now, if I start it again, we have to start from the command prompt. We cannot start from here, right? So once it's started, we can restart, shut down, and the renew certificate. So certificate is, we have secure SSL communication between the control plane and the Mule runtime engine. So it's talking about that certificate. Okay, so it's running again. So these options are enabled again. So the point is, we connected these two components. Okay, now next step. Next step is, let's deploy the same application that we deployed on the Cloud Hub, right, from the control plane. Let's deploy the same application on the on-prem runtime engine using the control plane. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, application, go to the applications, and let's obviously to deploy an application, right, we need to have an application. Okay, so this is our application. I'm going to create a jar from this application for this application, right? So as I have already explained, like how to create jar or deployable jar, Mule deployable jar from an application. So what you need to do, right click on your project, click on the export, and then select the Mule, and then select the Anypoint Studio project to Mule deployable archive. Click on next. Let's leave these option as it is for now. Okay, so the name of jar will be hello world 2 dot jar, right? So want to replace? Yes, so there is already a file with this name, so we want to replace it with the new jar file. let's come over here and okay. So next, to deploy an application, we need to follow the same step that we followed to deploy the application in the Cloud Hub. Okay. To deploy the application, click on the deploy application, right? And then write a name. Hello world. Okay. And then select your target. So this time in the previously we selected the Cloud Hub as our target. This time I have to select this server as my target. And I hope you remember this is the name that I gave when I configured my on-prem runtime engine to the Cloud Hub to the Anypoint platform, right? I hope you remember, right? So I will select this as a target, right? And then choose file, upload file. Right, so I guess this is our jar created at 9:34. Yeah, this is the jar. Open. Okay, so that's it for now. Click on the deploy application. Oh, it is fast. Okay. So application has been deployed. Now it is starting. So here it says initializing the app tag on-prem hello world. Okay, so here you can see in the log, right? So okay, so let's wait for it to start. Once it starts, then I want to show you a couple of more things, some more detail. Okay, application started. So if you want to access this application, right, if you remember when we deployed the same application on the Cloud Hub, right, we got a app URL, right? So to hit our HTTP service, we use this as a host name. I hope you people remember, right? But in case of on-prem, right, we do not have that. Why it is not that? Why it is the case? Because we know how to reach to that server or application where my Mule runtime engine is running, right? What I mean is, I know this application was deployed in my laptop. So I have a host to reach to that instance of Mule runtime, right? So if you see, we configured an HTTP listener, right? And then HTTP listener was configured to listen on port 8081. All right. And path was hello. Okay. So to access the application, we still have to do the same thing. Localhost means 127.0.0.1, which means this laptop. I do not want my request to leave my laptop. I want it to stay in the same laptop and look for the port 8081. Okay, and then hello. Localhost. So this is the result, right? So this is what we have done in our application, right? And if you remember, right, we see this application, we have one log, right, that says it started hello world, and then we set a message that we wanted to see on the browser, and then we have a log message here as well at the end. Okay, so when I was running this application, in the Anypoint Studio, right, on this Eclipse platform, I was able to see these log messages here on the console. I hope you remember, right? And we saw the same log messages, right, when we ran this application on the Cloud Hub, right? And that time, that log message was available in the logs here, right? You remember that? And you can see that here as well. Still, this information is available, right? But when my application is installed on the on-prem machine, right, I will not able to see the log here, because Mule platform don't need to manage that log, right? I am managing the platform, so I know where it is installed and that machine is accessible to me, right? So it was installed in my laptop, so I can go in my laptop and see that log, right? So if you see here, it will be somewhere here. Okay, it will be in the log file. Go here. So this is the Mule runtime engine, right? You come to the logs, and this is the log file. This is the log file created specifically for your application, right? And we will discuss that why this log file, why it is created with this name and other stuff, right? When we look into the log component, right? But for now, just remember, by default, Mule runtime engine create separate log file for each project, and the name of the log file is same as the name of your application. Okay, so name of my application or name of my jar was hello world 2, right? So the name of the log file is hello world 2.log. If you open this, you can see here, right? See, this is the log message that I have printed. Okay, so that is the point number 2. So what we just now did, we connected the Anypoint platform with the Mule runtime engine that is installed in my laptop, and then we use the control plane or Mule runtime Anypoint platform to deploy our application to on-prem Mule runtime engine. Okay, so that was point number 2. Okay, and the applications that are running on the on-prem servers, those do not get the Cloud Hub URL, right? The Cloud Hub URL is available only to the application that is deployed on the Cloud Hub, right? Logs, in case of the on-prem, logs for the application created in the logs folder, and you cannot see that log from the Anypoint platform. Okay, so this is the one thing. So let me know if you have any questions so far. Mule runtime engine is a separate application that run your Mule code, Mule flows. Okay.
I got it completely now.
Okay. Now, why we connected? Your question was why we connected the control plane with the Mule runtime, so that I use this user interface, right, to deploy application, right? And as we go, right, and we infer in future, we'll see this. We use this user interface or control plane to do many other things in the Mule runtime engine, right? Although you can do that things in other ways also without using this control plane, but then it will be raw, right, or not good way to do it, right? So we connected the control plane with the runtime engine so that we manage our runtime engine with the control plane user interface, which we call the Anypoint, Mule Anypoint platform. Okay, Mule Anypoint platform. This is Mule Anypoint platform, component 1. This is Mule runtime engine where application runs, And this is Anypoint Studio, where application is developed, where we write logic. Okay, so I hope so far it is clear. Okay, all right, can we move on?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, so next step. So we just now saw we deployed our application from the control plane to Mule runtime engine. Okay, so if the application is deployed in the Mule runtime engine, inside the Mule runtime engine, it means then it means code must be somewhere in my laptop, right? Let's see that. Okay, so you go to the bin directory to run various commands and to control the Mule runtime engine, right? Then we looked at the logs folder, right? In the logs folder, you have log file where you see the application specific logs, right? For each application, separate log. Name of the log file is Mule application name, right? For instance, hello world 2, right? It was the name of my application, the API, whatever you want to say, you can say, and the name of the log file is same .log. Then there is a folder called the apps, right? We'll look into the other folders as well during our course, right? But for now, let's look at the apps folder. Okay, do you see anything here? Do you remember where we use this word or this phrase? Tech on-prem hello world. So if you remember, this is the name of our application. This is the name I used when I was deploying my application. Okay, let me show this again. This guy. Okay, so this is the code. So actually what we call that control plane or a Mule Anypoint platform has sent the code or the jar file to this directory, or it has placed the basically jar file in this directory, right? That jar file in the deployment process, right? Jar file gets unzipped or unjarred, right? So when it is open, it get like this, right? So your code is inside this folder. Okay, and then you have this anchor file, right? We will discuss about this because it has some significance. Okay, so we'll see what we can do with this. All right, so that is the point number 2. Okay, uh, your application get deployed in the apps folder. Okay, so let's start this let's stop this application once. Okay, to stop this application, what you need to do, go here and click the stop. Okay, so it says stopping application. Okay, next step, I'm going to delete this, delete application. Okay, application is removed. Oh, do you see? This is where we saw that folder. All right, it's not here, right? Okay, let me try to access my application. I should not able to because my application is not running now. It has been removed. It stopped and then I removed it from the server. I deleted from the server or Mule runtime. Okay, so that explains that why I'm not able to access the application. Okay, so this is important point. Okay, any question here? And if no question, then I want to show you one more important stuff. Okay, so here training. This was our jar, right, that we created just now for this session. I'm going to take this. Okay. I will place this in apps folder. Okay. Ooh. What happened? Jar file got unjarred. Hello world. Right? Oh, that's interesting, right? Okay, let's come over here. It is deployed. It's running. Come over here. It's not showing up here. Okay. But your application is deployed now. Okay. So that is another way to deploy your application. Okay. But the only thing is that you will not able to manage it from here, from your control plane. Okay. But your application is running. Okay. And here is your application. Yeah. You can see your application is running. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. So that was some fundamental concepts, some basic understanding before, I mean, the required before you go into the programming part. Okay. So now we know deployment model, we know how to deploy the application, right? And then how to deploy it in the cloud hub, how to deploy it in the on-prem, and then we learn 2 or 3 ways to deploy the application. We now know how to check the logs, right? And then, and definitely, as I mentioned, this Mule runtime engine has some more folders that we'll look into in our future sessions. Okay, like that .mule, sorry, the config domain, right? We'll look into it later. Next. Now our next goal is to learn how to write programs, how to build logic in the MuleSoft, right? So I have discussed in previous session, to build logics in the MuleSoft, we use these basic components. Okay. Now we will start looking into these components. Okay. But before this, right, I want to give you people a brief, introduction of XML data type and then the JSON data type, right? Because we are going to use it a lot. Okay, so everything, all programs that will write, we will be using the XML data type or the CSV data type, and that is which is the case actually in most of the Mule applications that you're going to build, right, in your career. So we will, I will give you a brief introduction on that, and then we will start looking into the various Mule components one by one. Okay, but before that, I want to show you people one more thing, one important thing, and I have mentioned this as well in my previous session, which is when you run your application, right, in any point platform, right, your application get deployed in an inbuilt Mule runtime engine, which is inbuilt in the Anypoint Studio, right? So if you see here this path, Mule home, So when I run my application in the Anypoint Studio, right, for debugging and for the testing, right, when I'm developing application, my application get deployed in the Mule runtime engine. That is for sure. But that Mule runtime engine is, you don't need to install externally, right? It is inbuilt in the Anypoint Studio. If you want to see that engine, right, you copy this path and go to that location. Okay, so if you see here, here you have apps folder, here you have bin folder. So this is all simple Mule runtime. Okay, so if you want to look at the logs, you can come here and check the logs as well, right? So here, right? But you don't need to come here and check the logs, because we see the logs here on the console itself, right? But that information is here. Okay. And then it has other folders as well, which we'll look into later. So that was important point. Okay, now let's look at and have a brief introduction of XML and the JSON data format, right? I will not give much detail, but I will discuss some basic things. Okay, and it is really important for everyone to know and learn about the JSON data type and XML data type. So you go on Google and spend some 1 hour or the 2 hour to learn about these two data formats. Okay, and trust me, you don't need to spend more than 1 hour or more than 2 hours to learn these two data format. If you spend 2 hours, you will know everything, right, of these two data formats. And I hope most of you people are aware of XML format, right? But you may not very familiar with the JSON, which you can follow a tutorial on Google and learn. Okay, and you don't need to spend more than an hour or something like that, right? Based on your ability to understand new things. Okay, so as you know, XML, right? So XML is a data structure, or we can say data format, in which we can place our information before we want it to send across to different application, right? Okay, so it's a kind of data format. Okay, so in XMLs we have elements. Okay, we have elements. So elements is written between these two greater than or less than sign. Okay, so say suppose I want to create a XML that will contain records of students. Okay, so that can be of any format, but for me, for my application, for my institute, uh, that XML format, a structure that will contain student information of my students will look something like this. Students, right? So this is called one element, right? And we sometimes also refer it as tag. Okay, so each tag has an opening tag, right, and then closing element or tag. Okay, then you have, and this is called the root tag, which is at the top in the XML structure. Okay, that called as a root. And a valid XML file will always have only and only one root element. It cannot have two root element. It will have only one always. Inside this elements, I can have child elements, okay, or child tags. For example, in this case, student is my root tag. Inside the student, I will have student. Okay, this tag will repeat. Okay, and so we will have one pair of student tag, opening student tag, and then the closing instrument student tag for each student. Okay, so like this: student 1, student 3, student 4, student 5, something like this. Okay, then inside this I will have name. Name is, say, suppose John. Okay. Remember, if you see here, right, I have always have opening tag and then the closing tag, right? So between this, if you see, value of this tag is another tag, right? Value of this tag is also another tag, but the value of this tag is actually information, right? Then age, right? ID, okay. Subject. So we have multiple subjects. Subjects. Okay. Inside subjects, I will have subject, subject, right? Name. Name of subject is, say, suppose Java. Java. And then is something like this. So this is an example of XML structure. So you have to build this XML structure based on your requirement. For me, this is good enough. I don't need any other information about uh, about any student, right? Because, but for someone else, this student XML may be different, right? It will be based on requirement of that institute, right? For example, right, so because we do the professional courses, we don't care that how, if you do the certification or not, if you pass the exam or not, and if you pass the exam, what kind of marks you carry. So I will not have a marks element here, right? But for someone else, right, so some, maybe for some school or college, right, marks important, marks is important, right? So they will have a marks tag here, right, which will contain a integer number, something like this, right? The point is, XML structures are different, right, based on the requirements. It varies, but XMLs always carry information. It's a file format, and it has elements, right, like this. And then you got your you have tag values, right, and the parent child relationship between the tags, right, and tag which is starting, it always close, right, every tag. Okay, so that is about the tag and elements and about the XML. Okay, then one more thing, which is attributes, right? Your elements or the tags can contain attributes, right? Now what is the attribute? Okay, attribute is basically it's provide more information about your tag, right? It's like metadata. Okay, so for example, right, subject. Okay, I can have here line, right, like your English language or uh, something like this. Okay, so is not very significant I mean, it's a significant information, but this is something related to the subject itself. Okay, so you also can have attributes, and attributes are written like this inside a tag. Okay, and you can have multiple attributes like this. Okay, got it. So this is a brief introduction of XML. Okay, so we are and again, right, you can have multiple students like this. Okay, so this is your XML. Okay, now JSON. Okay, so maybe we can discuss about the JSON in the next session, right? And again, but on high level, JSON is nothing but is also a file format. You can structure your data in the JSON format. Okay, and it can do the same thing what your XML can do, right? But the only major difference between XML and the JSON on the high level is JSON is again lightweight. Okay, so if you see here, I have write so many letters, right, so many characters to store this information, and if you see the file size for this, it will be much more higher than the JSON if I store the same information in the JSON, right? So let's convert this, right, XML into JSON. Convert JSON. It's XML. Okay, so my XML has some problem. Name. Oh. H. Name replaced with name. Oh, sorry. Java replaced with name. So, okay. So did you notice this? So because this name tag did not has closing name tag, right? So it was my parser or the application that will read this structure, XML structure, it will not able to do so. It will error out, right? So that is the reason you see this error. So the end tag is mandatory, is important. You see here. Now to JSON. Okay, there you go. So this is your JSON, right? So this is lightweight. So this is array. Inside the array, right, we have these objects, right? And then we have array, and then we have this, right? So let me cover JSON file format as well. It will not take much, right? And but I have, as I have mentioned, you need to have or go through at least basic JSON tutorial on internet, right? So as you can see here, right, JSON is also a file format, right, or a way to structure your data or information, right? So if you see here, right, JSON has two things, right, two notations, right, and which is like this. Okay, one is like this and other is this. Okay, this represents an object, okay, and this represents an array, okay, something which will repeat every time. Okay, so for example, right, for example, uh, if I want to present the same information, right? So that we have in here in XML, right? If you want to represent the same information in JSON, we have to do something like this, right? But in JSON, what the main difference is? It does not have text, but it has symbols to represent the structure, right? And then it has key value pair. Okay, so any JSON file, right, with it start with most of the time it starts something like this, with something like this. Okay, so everything is an object in JSON, right? Then you have key value pairs. Okay, key is the name and then the value is the value of that key. For example, name, right? So name colon and then the name, right? So this part is called the key and this part is called the value. Remember something very important. In JSON, your key is always a string. Okay. Value can be string like this. It can be a number, right? It can be null, right? It can be, I think, date time, something like that, or it can be an array, right? I hope everyone know what array is, right? If you know even C, C++, you will know. Value can be an array as well. So like this. Okay. So for example, let's say suppose name is John, right? And then each set of data is separated by the what we call it, this symbol, comma. Okay, name and value is separated by the colon and this is separated by the comma. Okay, so another information, age, say suppose 30, right? Then comma and then subjects. Okay, subject is an array, Java, C, C++, stuff like that, right? Okay, so sorry, it will be in the it will always have to in string, double quotes. Okay, so this is another structure. Okay, array, this is an array, that is for sure, right? But value of inside an array, instead of simple string, you can have objects, something like this. Okay, so subject, name, Java colon and then freeze. Okay, that's it, right? And this can repeat. As you know, elements or the values inside an array is separated by comma, again comma, something like this. Okay, and this structure can go as complex, as deep as you want. I mean, the value of this element can also be a further array, oh sorry, object or an array, right? So something like this, right? This key and then value. Okay. And again, I mean, inside this also you can have array object, something like that. But the basic thing is, basic structure remains like this. It follows these basic things. Okay. So within the curly braces, you have objects, and then objects contain the name value pair, right? And in the square brackets, you write the arrays, which is of similar type. And arrays can contain simple string values as well as objects, right? And then again, inside object, you can have the same thing can repeat again, basically. Okay, so this is JSON, JSON data. Okay, and as I mentioned, remember JSON in the JSON, right? Your names or your keys will always be within double quotes, right? Because in Mule we have something called the data weave, right? And I have seen people get confused between the data weave and JSON. So when we write the data weave, DW skips in the DW, it looks very similar to this, but in the data weave, your keys cannot be string. It can be anything, right? So it does not need to be quote within double quotes. It don't need to be in the double quotes. So that is one important thing. Okay, let's move to the next step. Okay. All right, next. In one of previous session, right, I have explained about the HTTP protocol, right? So, and I hope all of you are familiar that HTTP has, I mean, HTTP is a protocol which we can use to transport data from one system to another system. Okay, we can use to transport data from one system to another system, right? So, for example, so how we transport data, right? We have to understand this part as well. Otherwise, other explanations will you will not able to follow, right? So, if you see HTML form, right? We all know, right? If we let's say suppose you want to register on the google.com, or if you want to create a Gmail ID, right? So you will go on the Google, you will do something, search, right? And eventually Google will present you with a form, right? It will have different fields like name, right? And then you have where you need to in the box you need to enter the name, right? And then you will have age and I mean different fields, right? And then you will be like filling these boxes with your information, right? And then eventually you will press this submit button, right? So once you submit, but you will press the submit button, your browser will send this information to your Google server. Okay, so how this information go to your server? Okay, so how it goes in HTTP protocol, there are different ways to pass information from the browser to the server. Okay, so in this, say suppose this is your HTTP request. Okay, so in HTTP request we have something called the HTML, sorry, not HTTP, sorry, HTTP body. Okay, so you can pass the information in the body, right? Then you have something called the URI parameters. Okay, so if you must have noticed, right? So something like this, not here as well. No, here it is, right? You see google.com, then search, and then you have question mark, and then you have all this information. See, this is key equal to this, up to here, right? And then you have and sign, and then there is something else, and then you have some more information which go up to here, right? This is also a way to pass the information, and this is called the parameters. URI parameter, not the URI, query parameter, sorry, it is called a query parameter. So second place where information can be passed is the query parameter, right, which go in the header. So you can keep, basically you can keep or you can place your information in the body section of HTTP protocol, right? And then you can place your information, some little bit information, small information, right, in the query parameter as well. Okay, and when this packet whole thing get to your server, HTTP server, it know how to get this information, right? So it will look into the body, it will fetch this information, it will look into the query parameter, it will fetch that information and give to your application in certain form, right? So this form data, right, that you fill, right, and you click on the submit button, right, it go in the body, right? And then you can also pass some information in the query parameter as well. Okay, so query parameter is something like this, right, as I explained. So this is called the query parameters, right? This information also go to your it go to your what we call server. Okay, that is second thing, right? And after that, there is one more way to pass information from client to server, right? And we call it as URI parameter. Okay, so body, remember, information in the body, information in the query parameter. Now the third type, information is URI in the URI parameter, right? How that looks. Okay, look at here, look at this guy, right? Here, I mean, actually that is, we cannot say like that, right? But I assume if you see here, right, in this URL, right, we call this URL, right? In this URL, this part may be URI parameter. Okay, this is the address for resource which we want to access, and maybe this can be your URI parameter, right? If you look at this one, right, maybe if you see here it is more, I think, visible, right? So something.html, this is the resource, right, which we want to access, where we want to post the information. So when I clicked on convert XML to JSON, right, my information was passed or sent to this resource, to this HTML page, right? And then this could be your URI parameter, something like this. If it is something like this, right? So this information can also be passed to your custom application, and you can extract it, and you can use it, right? And this is called the URI parameter. Okay, so query parameter, URI parameter, and then you have information in the body, HTML body, right? Then we have few more things like that, HTTP HTTP header and stuff like that we discuss in when we as we proceed, right? When we discuss the HTTP listener, right, HTTP protocol, right, we'll discuss these things in much detail, right? What is the header and what all headers we need to know, and how that works. Okay, but for now this is good enough. Beside that, the one last thing, right, there is something called the methods in HTTP protocol, right? So we have get method, we have post methods, we have 5 or 6 different kind of methods, right? We'll discuss about that as well, but not today. Okay, in future. Okay. So what we are going to do? What we are going to do is we are going to now write an application, or we're going to update this application that we have here in such a way that it accepts, that is in such a way that it accept an XML data. Okay. Now, say suppose our requirement is this only, this as students. Okay. I'm creating a web service, right, or some application that will enable anyone or different companies to register their employees as a student with my company. Okay, so for that, what I have to do, I have to create a resource or something, and it has to deploy somewhere, so that my application accept or receive students detail student detail like this, right? And once that application or data is received in my application, I will perform some business logic, and I will process that records and store in the database, and then I will integrate with SAP system and some other applications, right, to make those people enroll in my college. So suppose that is the requirement. Okay, so requirement is something like this. Okay, I want to create an application, right, that should receive an XML data, right? So what this XML data will contain? It will contain a record for one employee and one person, right? So I will have an URL with something like called XYZ. You call this XYZ URL, I mean something like HTTP XYZ/enroll, right? And pass this, give this XML, right? Pass this XML and send the request to my application. My application will read this XML data from the request, right? And it will process it, right? And now into processing, it can maybe send the data to SAP system, right? It may send data to some other application as well, mainframe, say suppose mainframe, and that is required for an application and person to enroll as a student in my college, right? So we are going to do something like this, right? So we need to have an application that accept XML data and process it, right? How it will be processed, it will be depending on you and me, the way we want to process, right? So we are going to learn how to pass data on an URL, and how to receive that data in Mule, okay, and how to utilize that information or data, okay. How to do it? So you come over here. Okay, so first of all, as I have mentioned, you have to use a listener, right? Because listener is a component that enables the application, right? It enable the application to listen on a specific port, or it enables the application to accept the HTTP request, right? So this, if this is my application, right? In this application, there has to be something, right, which accept the request, right? So I cannot use the FTP protocol or FTP listener or SFTP listener or some other listener, JMS listener. I cannot use. I have to use the HTTP listener. So HTTP listener will enable this application to accept any request, right? And I think in the previous application, I have explained you that how this flow work, right? So you will have URL port, and then your request come to the port, right? And then it go to your application, and then flow, and how that entire thing works, right? If you uh, look into the previous session, right, you will understand this part as well. Okay, so this is my listener component. All right. So if you see here, this is how we configure it. So this is my port number on which this service will listen, right? And then this is the path, right? Right. Student register. Okay. Then, so, okay. Now, again, you have to recall what we have learned in the previous session, right? I'm explaining you that once this listener receives the request, it converts, right? What it does, it oh, I remove that, right? What it does, it parses that HTTP header, HTTP information, right? HTTP information that or the request, HTTP request that it received from the browser, right? So it will have like your headers, right? Okay, my digital pen is not working, so problem. I'm not able to write it properly, right? So it will have your headers. Here is your parameters, right? Query parameter, and this is your body, right? This is your body. Okay, so once your listener receives this application, okay, what it does, it creates the Mule event. Remember that Mule event will have two parts: Mule message and variable. I have explained this, right? And then in the Mule message, you will have further two things: meet attributes and the payload, right? So what this listener is going to do first is create this Mule event, right? And it will parse or retrieve the required information from the HTTP request and place it in the Mule event. How it will do? You have, it's difficult to write. This is your message, Mule message, right? And here you have attributes. This is your attributes, and this is the payload, right? It will take the body information and place it in the payload, right? It will read the header information and the query parameter and the URI parameter from the HTTP request and place it in the attributes. Okay, this is your attributes. Views. Okay, this is your attributes, right? And then here is your variables that we'll look into it, right? Okay, so let's see this. Okay, let me just log payload. Okay, so if you want to access the payload, this is the way to access the payload. Okay, and what we call, let's also access the query parameter. Okay, here, come here, I will say to attributes dot query param dot. Okay, now what is this source? Okay, I describe what requirement, right? So student data should come in the body, but I just now determine one more thing. I want to add one more requirement in the in this application, right? The requirement is I'm going to get students registration information from many sources. Like I will get the Somebody will use the tablet, someone will use the mobile, someone may use the browser, right, and or their laptop, right, to pass the information, right, or someone may use I mean, a REST API to integrate with my system. Okay, so it is important for me that I know the source, right? So, and I can use that information in many places, right? Say suppose a lot of people use um, mobile to communicate with my application, right? So I can maybe separate out my mobile logic part, and I can make it more robust or something like that, right? So I need to basically know the source, right? I want users to send the student information in the body, but the source information in the URI. Okay, so they will be accessing my application like this, colon something something, right, slash student registration, right, and then I want them to pass the source as, I mean, whatever source they are using. If they are want sending the information from the mobile, then here should be mobile. If they are sending the information from laptop, then it should be laptop, right? So this is my query parameter. Okay, let's come over here. So in my application, to access that query parameter that will come in the query parameter, right, I have to use this. I have to access it this way inside the attribute. Why am you doing this? I explained you, right, that header information query query parameter and the URI parameter. Everything go in the attribute except the body, right? So data will go in the payload. So if you see here, right, I'm accessing the payload with the payload variable, right? I have explained the Mule event in detail, okay? And then you have your query parameter. This is how we access the query parameter, right? So inside the attribute, we will have the Mule, this listener, HTTP listener will create a array or the map with the name called the query params, right? And after that dot, right, the name of variable, right? I mean, say suppose if I want, because I'm using its source, they have to use source equal to mobile, right? If I use here, say suppose something like that, access source, right? If I determine the name of variable this, then they have to send the request like this, and I have to use that variable name here like this. Okay, so this is your query parameter. All right. For now, let's run only this application up to here, right? Because I have to now see, these are the basic things, right? I mean, maybe in the from tomorrow's session we will go a little faster, but these things are important to understand to create the base, right? Otherwise, trust me, you will not follow future sessions. I don't want to run it. I want to debug it. Okay. Okay, so meanwhile, application is being deployed in the Mule runtime engine. Let's discuss one more thing. Okay, what is that one more thing? So see, there is always one more thing to discuss, right? When you want to do it right way. In so far we send the request like this, right? So I know I have explained this, right? So you need to create the HTTP request. You can create the HTTP request from your browser. So you type the URL, and when you press the enter, right, your browser sends an HTTP request. We know it well, right? And this is your URL, right? Now, if I want to send a parameter, query parameter, right, I can say source equal to something like this, right? Query parameter is gone to the server. This also looks good, perfect, right? If I want to pass a URI parameter, right, then maybe I can say 1 2 3 4. Okay, I can still pass this information, right, from the browser. This looks good too, right? This guy is still running. Okay, I know that it will fail. Okay, so okay, let's complete this point before we distract to something else, another issue. Now my question is how I'm going to send the body part or the data, right? I need to send the data, this data, right? This student, no, where are you? This is student data in the body, in HTTP body here, right? How I'm going to send that. In case of Gmail form, right, or the Google form, you are able to send your form information in the body because there is a form, right? There is a form. You fill the form, submit, click the submit button, browser extract the field information of the form, right, or of your field that you filled in, right, and place it in the HTTP body and send. But how are you going to send this information now, because there is no form here where I can place and click on some submit button, right? So to resolve this issue, we have softwares that can, right, that can create HTTP requests for you, right? That can create HTTP requests for you, and it will give you option to place some data in the body as well, right? And one of that tool is Postman, which now a lot of people use. Okay, so we use the Postman to send HTTP requests. Okay, like this. HTTP let me send the request to the same URI which was working. Okay, this is the URL that which you need to type in here, right? And then you can place the query parameters here, set the query parameters here. You can set the header here in this section, authorization here, body somewhere here. Whatever data you want to send. Okay, and then you click on the submit button. Then this software, right, or this application will create a HTTP request for you, the same way your browser do for you. Okay, if you do not want to use this, there are other way also to do. I mean, if you so fond of your browser, right, you can still do it, but you have to do some work, right? That we can discuss some other time. Okay, so click on send. There you go. So this is your response that has sent from your application, right? That's sent your application, and this is how you can pass the information. So that is the reason you have to use the Postman to send HTTP requests to your Mule applications. Okay, that is another important thing. And this is the use of Postman. Okay, I tried to deploy my application, right? I want to show this to you because you're going to face this problem a lot. Okay. So it says failed to deploy the artifact. So my application is not deployed. And it says that HTTP listener configuration on port 8080 address already in use, right? So I explained you that how port number work in this whole application, in whole thing, right? If you remember, I created a diagram and I show you that how this whole thing worked, right? So right now application failed to deploy because I wanted to run my application to listen on port number 8081. Why 808? Why I'm saying 8081? Go to this listener, click on here, see port I have specified as 8081, right? Come here. So application is failed to run on 80801 because something is already running on 8081, right? So the question is what is running on 8081, right? Remember, we deployed our application on the cloud hub, in the on-prem server, on-prem Mule runtime engine, right? And that engine is running in my laptop, and my application that I deployed, it is also running on 80801, right? So the application which is deployed in my Mule runtime, where it was, I forget again. Okay, which is running in my Mule runtime, right? Whose console is this, right? That application is actually which is deployed, the application which is deployed on this Mule runtime engine in my laptop. Actually, that application is running 8081, and that port is occupied by that application, right? So if your port is already in use, then you will get that kind of error. Okay, so if you want to fix that, there are two ways, right? First, you change the port number here for your application in the listener. Come to the listener, change the port number. So change the port number for 8081 to 802, something like that, right? But if you do not want to do it because you love this port, right? Something like that, close this application. Simple, right? So I'm going to do that. Stop this application, what it says. Yes, application is stopped. Okay, I'm going to run the application again. Okay, to stop the application in your Anypoint platform, and sorry, Anypoint Studio, you can click on this red button to terminate, to stop. I want to debug it, I don't want to run it. I'm waiting application to start. Okay. Okay. So this time it says deployed, application deployed. Okay. I'm cleaning this console so that we'll look at the logs properly and clearly. Okay. So as I mentioned, I have to send request, HTTP request, because I want to send something in the body from the Postman. Okay. So first thing first is you need to know the URL, right? So because my application running in the local host in this laptop, so I'm going to use the host name as a local host. Port number 80801 I have explained. Now what will be the resource URL or resource path, right, where we want to reach? This is my student registration, which is specified here. You get it from there and place it here and click on submit button. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. If you do this, then it's going to fail, right? Reason behind that is, I mean, it will not fail, but we haven't passed any information. So request has come here. I will let it go, right? And actually, it does not do anything because source is null, and then payload is also null because we did not send anything in the payload, right? So now I'm going to send something in the URI. So what I need to send in the URI, a variable with the name called access source. Okay, so this is okay. Actually, there is a better way to do this here in this tool. You need to go here, okay, paste the value here. It will come over here, right? So that is the use uh, to use user interface, right? You don't need to type in the URI, right? So you can specify as many parameter as you want. Second value, something like that, right? See, it is appending in the basically in the URI only, right? So if you know the basics, you can connect the dots easily, right? So come down to your body. This is your body, right? So what are you going to get it in the body? Up. Yep. No, this guy. This is my student data. Okay, I want to register today. How many students? 1, 2, 3 students. Okay, I take this, come over here. There you go. Okay, and I'm going to send this raw data as an XML. Okay, so body, click down the body, whatever you want to send in the body. How I want to send it? I want to send it as XML. Click send. Come over here. Okay, so because I'm debugging this, so I placed a breakpoint at this activity, the first component, right? So request come to the listener, right? Listener, what listener has done? The same thing that I have been explaining for some time. It has created a Mule event, right? What Mule event contain? The attributes. So you can see here, it has all the information, right? It has attributes, the payload. There you go. You see this payload, right? And we haven't created any variable, so this guy is empty for now. But your payload is here, right? Click on this. See? This is the whole payload, right? Let's look at the attributes, right? So I said, Mule listener has done this for you. It has extracted all the information from the HTTP request and placed it in the uh, attributes. Okay, query parameter. So if you see query parameter, it has 2 variables. Access source, do you remember? Access source equal to mobile. So access source equal to mobile. Second equal to 222. This is my second variable here. You got it? So your listener has done a lot of things for you, right? And if, say, suppose in your application you want to access your business logic, your business need, requirements requires you to access some other values that has come in the HTTP header, then you can use one of these variable to access it, right? Okay, come over here, click on what I did. Okay, so first log. So in the first log, if you see what I just have this string, okay, just to show you. Okay, it started hello world application. So here it is. Okay, now you click on the next, right? So in this, if you see, I'm printing the payload, right? So if you see here, this is my payload, right? That's it. That's the integration, right? Now you have payload. Apply your business logic, whatever you want, right? You send to the SAP, you want to send to Salesforce, you want to send to the mainframe, right? You don't want to do anything, delete it, whatever you want to do. Now it's up to you, right? You got the data in your application, right? Use whatever business logic you want to use, right? I also need the source, how this request has come, right? That will come in the URI parameter, sorry, query parameter, right? So how to access query params, and then the name of variable which you want to access. Okay, so let's see, mobile. There you go, right? The point is, now you have learned how to send the information from in the HTTP request from browser or from somewhere from another application to your application, and how you can access that data, right? So that is everything, right? Now you have data, you can apply a for loop, you can apply a if condition, you can batch it, you can translate it, you can convert it into EDI, you can convert it into CSV, Excel, whatever you want to do, right? So that's it. So now we are ready after 3 sessions, right? We are ready to learn Mule. Okay, so from next session, which will be tomorrow, we are going to start learning programming. The first thing first. So that will be our first approach, right? Then we learn connectors, all different kind of connectors, right? And after covering that, we will go to the control plane. And there is a lot to learn about control plane in Mule. Okay. So I think that is everything for today, right?